My successful husband asked the court for everything we owned, the house, the car, even my savings. He told the judge, I earned it all. She stayed home. The judge nodded, then ordered the financial records. The accountant opened the folder and started reading the list. He reached one account, and the judge cut him off. Red text, stop, read that again. The first time I heard my husband ask for my savings out loud, it sounded like he was ordering off a menu. We were already standing when he said it. Family Court, Department 14, the public benches full of people who had learned to stare at the floor and wait their turn to be broken into paperwork. A ceiling fan that didn't move enough air to matter. The clerk's keyboard clicking like a metronome. Mark stood at the petitioner's table in a navy suit I'd helped him pick out. Posture straight, voice smooth. He didn't look at me when he spoke. He looked at the judge like he'd been practicing this speech in front of a mirror that said yes. Your Honor, I earned it all, he said. She stayed home. He spread his hands like he was being reasonable, like the house, the car, the accounts, the years of my unpaid labor were simple math. His attorney slid a packet across the table. Petition for division, financial affidavit, proposed temporary orders. I saw the court stamp on the first page, filed 2 weeks ago, like a bruise I hadn't had time to feel. Judge Alvarez nodded once, eyes tired but not unkind. He'd heard this script. He'd seen confident people try to turn marriage into receipts. All right, he said. We're not doing speeches. We're doing records. Mark's smile held, like records were his best friend. The judge leaned forward. I'm ordering financial documentation for the marital period, full statements, account histories, any business ledgers used to claim income. I want an inventory in this file. The bailiff moved, collected a folder from the clerk, and handed it to a woman seated at the side table. Miss Patel, court-appointed accountant. Hair in a low twist, glasses perched like she'd never been impressed by a personality in her life. She opened the folder. The plastic sleeves made that dry, sticky sound. She didn't glance up. She just began reading the list in a voice that sounded like a printer. Primary residence, 1127 Alder Lane, she read. Vehicle, 2020. Highlander VIN ending 614. Joint checking. Horizon Credit Union ending 4402. Joint savings ending 9811. Respondent savings. Mark's jaw softened, almost bored. He was winning, in his mind. I sat with my hands folded, nails pressed into my palm under the table so I wouldn't shake. Warm truth, when someone tries to rewrite your life, calm is a kind of shelter. Miss Patel turned a page. Respondent's individual savings account ending 087, she continued. Current balance. Mark leaned back. Temporary fraud hold triggered by an attempted transfer in the amount of $47,500, she read, and her tone didn't change. Payee, Mark Ellison. Status, pending bank review. Case reference attached. Judge Alvarez's head lifted fast. Stop, he said sharply. He pointed at the page like it had teeth. Read that again. Yellow bar. A flagged transfer. His name. And my pulse went cold. By the time I met Mark, I'd already learned how to make a home feel like a promise. I liked routines. Lunches packed the night before. A calendar on the fridge with color-coded stickers. When Leo was born, I left my job at the dental office because Mark's travel schedule turned childcare into a constant emergency, and my paycheck wouldn't cover the scramble. We called it practical. We called it a plan. Mark called it support. At first, he liked saying, "My wife stays home," like it made him look generous. Later, he used it like a lock. The pattern didn't arrive with shouting, it arrived with forms. The first incident was the mail. One February morning, I went out to the box and found it empty. No school flyer, no utility bill, no credit union statement. The winter air bit my knuckles as I tugged the door open again, like maybe the mail was hiding. Inside the house, the heater clicked and the vents hummed, and the quiet felt staged. Mark walked in behind me, shaking snow off his coat. "Oh," he said, casual. I switched us to paperless, less clutter. I didn't remember agreeing to that, but when I asked, he shrugged. It's not a big deal. That night, while Leo slept and the dishwasher ran, I sat at the kitchen table under the fluorescent light that made everything look tired. I watched Mark type on his laptop, keyboard clicks, quick and confident. He didn't angle the screen away because he didn't think he needed to. You changed the email on the account, I said, reading over his shoulder, and my voice sounded too small in my own house. He didn't look up. I consolidated things. It's fine. The second incident was taxes. A year later, a refund I'd been counting on never landed. I'd planned to use it for Leo's summer camp deposit and a set of tires we needed. Mark told me he'd handled filing early because deadlines stressed him out and I wanted peace. Then a letter arrived from the IRS, one of the few things that still came in paper, saying our return had been accepted, refund applied to a prior balance. What prior balance? I asked. Mark tapped the letter with one finger like he was teaching me how to read. It's from my business, old stuff. It's dealt with. I stared at the print. Applied to outstanding obligation. He'd used our joint return like a sponge for something he hadn't told me existed. Toner smell from the printer still on the page, a neat signature at the bottom, his. When I asked for details, he smiled gently like I was a child. Don't worry about it, I'm on it. The third incident was the car. I went to renew the registration and the clerk told me the title wasn't in my name, not joint, not even mine. It's in Mark Ellison's name only, she said, pointing at the screen. Her voice had the neutral flatness of someone who knew she'd be blamed anyway. I laughed once because my brain couldn't find a better reaction. That can't be right. I drive it. I take our kid. It's what's recorded, she said. When I confronted Mark, he didn't deny it. He didn't apologize. I put it under my name for liability, he said, as if that explained the slow theft of agency. You don't need to worry about titles. I handle things. I'd wanted stability. I'd wanted a home where Leo would never feel the floor tilt, so I kept trying to solve it quietly. I started a folder in the kitchen drawer labeled Important, wedged behind takeout menus and spare batteries. I wrote passwords in a notebook and then tore the pages out because Mark had a habit of tidying. Every manipulation came with a smile and a reason that sounded responsible. And every time, a small part of my life moved from my hands into his. By the time he filed for everything, the paperwork already knew the way. The official move landed on a Tuesday, the way bad news always does, right between laundry and homework and pretending the week was under control. A process server met me on my porch while Leo was inside building a fort out of couch cushions. The man wore a reflective vest and held a stack of papers like they were a grocery bag. "Nora Ellison?" he asked. I nodded, and the air felt too bright. He handed me the packet. The top page had a case number in the corner, FAM-26-11482, and my name under Respondent. Mark had filed for dissolution with requests for exclusive use of the house, sole possession of the Highlander, and allocation of all liquid assets to petitioner. Under the reasons typed clean and cold, Respondent has no income. There was a hearing date circled in pen, March 3rd, 10 days. Inside, the house sounded normal, cartoon voices from the living room, the dryer thumping, but my vision narrowed like I'd stepped into a tunnel. I flipped pages fast, temporary orders, restraining provisions, a proposed schedule that gave Mark primary parenting time on the argument that he was financially stable. My throat tightened, not from sadness yet, from the precision of it. I walked into the kitchen and set the packet on the table. The fluorescent light hummed overhead like it didn't care. I didn't scream. I got quiet. I called Mark anyway. I needed to hear his voice say it. I needed to understand what kind of person I was married to, now that he'd put it in court ink. He answered on the second ring, cheerful like I was calling about groceries. "Hey," he said, "what's up?" "I was served," I said. A pause, then a sigh that sounded rehearsed. "It's just procedure, Nora." You asked for my savings, I said, my house, everything. It's marital property, he said, and there it was, his new language. And let's be honest, I built the life. I can't just hand you money to sit on. I raised our kid, I said, and my voice stayed flat because if I let it shake, he'd use it. I'm not doing this on the phone, he said. Talk to my attorney, the hearing's soon. He hung up like he was closing a laptop. 10 days is not a lot of time to learn the rules of a system designed for people who already know how to play. That night, after Leo fell asleep, I spread the papers across the kitchen table. The house was dark except for the light above me, a small island of brightness in a place that suddenly felt unfamiliar. I made a list on a legal pad, accounts, dates, passwords I could remember, questions I didn't know how to ask yet. I wrote proof at the top and underlined it hard enough to dent the paper. Then I opened my laptop and began the only thing that ever steadied me. I started pulling receipts. At midnight, the kitchen smelled like dish soap and cold coffee. The only sound was the refrigerator motor and the soft tick of the wall clock. I'd set out a row of envelopes and sticky notes like I was building a map out of paper. I logged into my savings account, my individual account that Mark had always called cute, like a hobby, and found I couldn't. The password didn't work. The reset link went to an email I didn't recognize. I stared at the screen until it blurred, then forced myself to breathe. I didn't need panic. I needed timestamps. I clicked help. The bank's chat window popped up. A bot asked me if I wanted to check my balance. I typed fraud and hit enter like it was a doorbell in the dark. A human agent joined. This is Talia. Can you verify your identity? I went through the questions. Mother's maiden name, last four, address. And my fingers stopped shaking once the conversation became steps. Talia's answers were careful, polite, compliant. There was a fraud hold on the account, she typed. An attempted transfer was flagged. Who initiated it? I typed back. I can't disclose that in chat, she responded. You'll need to speak with fraud prevention. I can open a case and have them call you. Open the case, I wrote. She asked for a phone number. I gave mine. She asked if it was safe to call. That question made my chest tighten, but I answered yes. She provided a reference, FP-771204, fraud case ID, a number that meant the bank believed something about my life that I hadn't been able to prove to anyone yet. I printed the chat transcript and the printer Word, toner smell rising sharp and familiar. I slid the pages into my folder, New tab, FP-771204. Then I opened my email. The bank had sent an alert the day before, new device login. The email looked normal until I clicked View Original. Full headers spilled down the screen, lines of code that looked like nonsense until you knew what to look for. Received, from an IP address, authentication results, a device fingerprint. The kind of details Mark had always assumed I wouldn't notice because I'd stopped working in an office and therefore, in his mind, stopped being competent. I copied the full headers into a document and saved it twice. Once on my laptop, once on a thumb drive I'd taped to the underside of a kitchen drawer months ago when Mark started organizing. The next morning, I took Leo to school, kissed his forehead in the drop-off lane, and drove straight to the bank branch. The lobby had that familiar smell of carpet cleaner and old air, fluorescent lights, the soft murmur of people explaining their lives to strangers behind glass. At the desk, I asked for the fraud department contact and a printout of my account login history. The teller, a woman with a neat bun and a name tag that read Maya, nodded like this was not her first day in human mess. We can provide device and login logs to the account holder, she said, but it may take compliance to generate. I'm the account holder, I said, and I slid my ID across the counter with hands that were steadier now. She typed. Keyboard clicks. Then she glanced at the screen, expression shifting the smallest amount. There's a new two-factor authentication destination on file, she said. What destination? I asked. She turned the monitor slightly so I could see the masked number, 9031. I didn't recognize it, but I did recognize the last four because I dialed them 1,000 times when Mark was on the road, his work phone. Maya didn't gasp. She didn't do drama. She just said, "I'm going to escalate this." And as she picked up the internal line, I realized the kitchen receipts were now walking into the world where stamps and systems lived. My attorney's office was in a low building that smelled like lemon cleaner and old paper. The waiting room had a water cooler and magazines nobody touched. On the wall, framed certificates that looked like proof of patience. Ms. Kim shook my hand and didn't give me sympathy first. She gave me structure. "Timeline," she said, sliding a yellow legal pad toward herself. "We build this like a ledger, dates, actions, documents." I handed her my folder. Inside were bank printouts, screenshots, the fraud case ID, the email headers, and the teller's type note that read, "To FA destination updated February 18th at 9:07 p.m. Ms. Kim's eyes moved fast and quiet. She didn't smile. That was comforting. "This is good," she said. "This is not feelings. This is record." She wrote down the case number from the petition. She circled the hearing date. She asked me if Mark had access to my phone. "No," I said, "but he had access to my laptop sometimes. He knows the answers to security questions." Ms. Kim nodded once. "We're going to do 3 things immediately. 1. Request a temporary restraining order for financial assets. 2. Respond to his petition with documented objections. 3. Preserve evidence so nothing disappears." She dictated a preservation letter while her assistant typed. The words were formal and sharp. "You are hereby instructed to preserve all electronically stored information." It listed bank logins, device records, business ledgers, QuickBooks files, and any communications related to asset transfers. It was addressed to Mark and his attorney. It wasn't emotional. It was a boundary in legal font. "Send it certified," Ms. Kim said. "Return receipt requested." After the office, I went straight to the post office. The line moved slowly. A child cried near the P.O. boxes. The clerk stamped my envelope with a heavy, final thud that made my stomach settle in a strange way. She slid the green receipt across the counter. Certified mail tracking number printed in black, 7019112 00004883156007. I tucked it into my folder like it was a key. Then I went to the courthouse clerk window to request certified copies of everything Mark had filed. The clerk wore reading glasses on a chain and didn't look up as she spoke. "Case number?" she asked. I gave it. She printed the docket sheet and stapled it to a stack of pleadings. Each page got a seal and a stamp. Certified copy. The ink was slightly raised when I ran my finger over it. Real. Official. Harder to twist. Back in Ms. Kim's office 2 days later, she leaned back in her chair. "One more artifact," she said. "Signature card." "What's that?" I asked. "The bank's original signature record for your savings account," she said. "If he tries to argue authorization, we compare. We show who has signing authority and who does not." She wrote "signature card" at the top of her pad and underlined it twice. Then she added one more note, quiet but deadly. "Request device association log." I walked out with my folder thicker, my steps steadier, and the strange comfort of knowing the story Mark was telling had to survive contact with clerks, stamps, and people who didn't care how confident he sounded. On Thursday, Leo's school called me while I was in the cereal aisle. The fluorescent lights above the grocery shelves buzzed in a way that made my skin feel thin. "Hi, Miss Ellison," the receptionist said. "We just need to confirm the aftercare pickup code for today." My cart stopped. "Why?" I asked, and I kept my voice even because Leo didn't deserve my panic. "There was an update in the portal," she said. "It shows a change to the authorized pickup list." My throat tightened. "A change by who?" "I can't see the name," she said, "but I can see the timestamp." "Please tell me," I said. She paused, reading. "Update made at 6:58 a.m. this morning." I was alone at 6:58 a.m. Leo was brushing his teeth while I packed his lunch. Mark was already at the airport, according to his calendar, headed to a client meeting. Yet somehow, a change had been made. I left the cart right there and drove to the school. The office smelled like pencil shavings and hand sanitizer. The secretary, Ms. Ortega, pulled up the portal screen and turned it toward me. "Here," she said, pointing. "See? Authorized pickup list edited. Your husband added his sister as emergency pickup and removed your mother." My hands went cold. "Removed my mother?" I repeated. "System shows it," she said, voice neutral like a spreadsheet. "Edit log timestamp 6:58:12. User ID, Mellison." There it was, another procedural artifact, not an accusation, a log. I asked for a printed note, and she obliged. School portal note, pickup list modification, recorded February 23rd. She stamped it with the school's address stamp like it was a tiny clerk seal. Before I left, I filed a written instruction with the principal. No custody changes honored without court order. She signed it and placed it in Leo's file. We copied it twice. That afternoon at the grocery checkout, my debit card declined. Once. Twice. The cashier looked up, polite but wary. "I'm sorry," she said. "It says account unavailable." Behind me, someone sighed. I felt my face heat, but I didn't move fast. I pulled out my credit card and paid, then walked to my car and called the bank from the driver's seat. The hold music was bright and cheerful in a way that felt almost insulting. When a representative answered, his tone was the same calm as Miss Ortega's. Numbers, not emotion. "Compliance line," he said. "This is Jared. Reference number?" I gave him FP771204. He clicked through screens. "Yes," he said. "Fraud hold expanded to linked accounts for review." "Linked by what?" I asked. "Device association and authentication," he replied. "Your online profile shows a login from a recognized device, then a transfer attempt, then an update to two-factor routing. It triggered our protocol. Compliance reference, CR-90218. I wrote it down on the back of a receipt. CR-90218. Another artifact to carry into court. "Can you tell me what device?" I asked. "I can tell you it's listed as a MacBook Pro," he said. My heart did a slow, heavy turn. Mark's work laptop, the one he'd used at our kitchen table while telling me I didn't need to worry about technical things. Jared's voice stayed flat. "Ms. Ellison, you'll receive a report packet by secure email. It will include access logs, IP history, and 2 FA routing change details." "Send it," I said. When the secure email arrived, it came with a download link and a warning. "Expires in 72 hours. The attached PDF had a table of entries, login timestamps, IP addresses, device IDs, and the phone number used for verification. Every line ended in the same 4 digits, 9031. I sat in my parked car and read it once, then again because it felt like watching my life become something that could be held up in a courtroom without anyone needing to believe me. When I picked up Leo from aftercare, he ran into my arms like nothing in the world had changed. His hair smelled like crayons and sun. He asked if we could have pancakes for dinner. "Yeah," I said, "we can have pancakes." And I held him a second longer than usual, not because I was afraid of Mark's power, but because I was done underestimating how far a person would go when control starts slipping. The morning of the hearing, Mark arrived early and greeted people like he was hosting. He shook hands with his attorney, nodded at the bailiff, smiled at the clerk. He wore the same navy suit, the same polished shoes, the same confidence that said the room belonged to him. I sat with Ms. Kim. My folder was thicker now, tabs labeled in black marker, bank logs, portal, certified, preservation, compliance. Mark leaned over once, voice low like he was offering a deal. "We can make this easy," he said. I didn't answer. Ms. Kim's stare was enough. Judge Alvarez entered and everyone stood. The courtroom settled into that tight quiet where paper sounds loud. Mark's attorney began the way they always do, confident, orderly, framed as concern. "Your Honor, my client has supported the household financially for the duration of this marriage," he said. He is requesting an equitable division that reflects his contributions. The respondent has no income and limited understanding of the finances. Mark nodded at limited understanding, like it was a fact, not an insult. Judge Alvarez looked at him and then at me. "I'm going to be clear," he said. "Equitable does not mean automatic, and claims require documentation." He turned toward Ms. Patel. "You reviewed the ordered financial records?" "Yes, Your Honor," she said, already holding the folder. Mark's smile returned. He liked folders. Ms. Patel stood and began reading the inventory again. House, car, accounts, like the first time hadn't already cracked something. She read slowly, methodically, and my pulse kept time with her words. Mark's attorney tried to interrupt twice with comments about context. Judge Alvarez didn't let him. He was in procedure mode, not story mode. Then Ms. Patel reached the flagged account again, and I saw Mark's eyes flick to his attorney like a reflex. Before she read it, Judge Alvarez raised a hand. "I want the supporting attachment for the fraud hold," he said, not just the summary line. Ms. Patel slid a printed packet onto the bench. The top page had the bank's letterhead and a bold header, Fraud Prevention Incident Report. It included the fraud case IDFP-771204 and the compliance reference CR-90218. Judge Alvarez scanned. His gaze sharpened. "Ms. Patel," he said, "read the initiation line." She looked down. The room held its breath. She read one line, clean and exact. Transfer initiated February 18th at 21:09:33 from device ID MBE-44A2. Verified via two-factor to number ending 9031. Payee, Mark Ellison. Amount $47,500. Mark didn't move at first. It was like his body didn't know what to do with a sentence that had his name in it twice. A single reinforcer came from the bank's compliance representative seated near the back. Summoned by phone and now present, suit plain, face blank. "That line is generated by our system logs and cannot be edited by the customer," he said. Mark's attorney rose too fast. "Your Honor!" Judge Alvarez held up a hand without looking at him. Mark's shoulders sank a fraction. Not a collapse. Not a tantrum. Just a quiet recalculation, like he'd been doing mental math and realized the numbers didn't match. Mark swallowed. His mouth opened, then closed. His eyes drifted finally to me. Not anger, not apology. A thin, stunned look like he'd truly believed the world would bend because he said it should. Judge Alvarez set the report down carefully, like it was sharp, and the room changed from a contest of narratives to a file full of facts. After the hearing, nothing felt victorious. It felt clear. Judge Alvarez denied Mark's request for exclusive use of the house. He ordered the status quo pending review. He maintained the fraud hold until the bank completed its investigation. He required written-only communication through a court-approved parenting app. He scheduled a financial review conference for April 7th and referred the attempted transfer for formal investigation through the bank's fraud unit. His voice stayed even, almost bored, because consequences in court are delivered like calendar items. "Mr. Ellison," he said, "you will not unilaterally move funds. You will not alter access. Any further attempts will be considered in sanctions and custody determinations." Mark nodded like a man swallowing a bitter pill, without letting his face show it. Then he gathered his papers and walked out without speaking to me. His attorney followed, eyes on the floor now, suddenly allergic to eye contact. Ms. Kim didn't hug me. She handed me a checklist. "Today," she said, "we locked down your life." So I did. First boundary. I changed every password from a clean device at the public library, not my home Wi-Fi. I enabled two-factor authentication to my own phone only and wrote down the recovery codes on paper that I placed in a sealed envelope at Ms. Kim's office. I requested the bank remove any device associations not personally verified and asked for a written confirmation letter. Second boundary. I opened a new account at a different institution and redirected my direct deposit from the part-time clinic job I'd just started. New routing number, new debit card, new signature card. I left the old account frozen until the investigation closed because clean separation matters more than pride. Third boundary, I filed the school order. Ms. Ortega scanned the court minute order into Leo's file, attached my written instruction, and added a note that any pickup list changes required in-person verification with my ID. The portal now sent an alert to my email and phone for any edit. I asked for camera review procedures if someone tried to pick him up without authorization. The principal nodded like she'd been waiting for a parent to ask in complete sentences. At home, I installed a simple door camera, not dramatic, just practical. I put a binder on the top shelf of the pantry labeled court, because Mark had always looked in drawers, not up high. I kept copies of everything, certified stamps, tracking numbers, compliance references, in sleeves that didn't tear. That night, Leo and I ate pancakes at the kitchen table. He told me about a drawing he'd made of our house with a big sun over it. He didn't know about fraud holds or device IDs. He just knew I was there. When he went to bed, I stood in the doorway of his room for a minute, listening to his steady breathing. The house was quiet, but it didn't feel staged anymore. It felt like something I could protect with steps, not wishes. Warm truth. Peace isn't the absence of conflict, it's the presence of boundaries. Before I turned off the hall light, I looked at the small stack of stamped papers on the counter, then at the clean sink, then at the dark window reflecting my own face. Tired, steady, still here, and I wondered gently what other parts of my life would finally feel like mine once I stopped asking permission to keep them.